Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm your host, Bill Hirschman, editor of Florida Theater on Stage, and I'm here with our usual panel of theatrical experts and talents. We start with the wonderful Iris Acker, actress, producer, and multi-talented person. And then the even more wonderful, or as wonderful, Karen Stevens, actress, director, writer,
that's good.
teacher, and other things.
Stop while you're ahead.
And the even more multi-talented Michael McKeever. But our special guest today is Lew Balaban. Lew is a closed captioning expert, and he's here to talk about our topic today, captioning and the arts. But it's not just captioning we're going to talk about. There is an immense program that stretches over all 3 counties that Lew is involved with that help the vision impaired, the hearing impaired, and many other kinds of people who would otherwise not be able to enjoy the productions that occur in our region. So I want to ask Lew a little bit about exactly that. What is the broad range of services that are out there for various types of patrons?
Anybody who has any type of disability is now welcome into the theater, and as it should be. I mean, the theater is for everyone, and no matter what disability you have, the theater will provide the services needed for that person to come to the theater, whether it be audio description, touch tours, braille programs, large print programs, open captioning, sign language interpretation, wheelchair accessibility. I mean, the Arts Center has developed a lift at the front of the stage for shows like Once, where everybody's invited on stage at the beginning of the show for the first half hour. People in wheelchairs and crutches can't get up there. So the Arts Center built a lift to bring these people up there. Same thing with hair. At the end of the show, everybody's invited up. Now they have lifts, and the Arts Center has one, the Broward Center has one, and I think the Kravis Center has one too. So it's accessible to everyone who wants to come to the theater.
How long has this program been operating?
Since 2004.
And roughly, do you have any idea of the number of people that are served at any particular time period?
It's hard to tell. I mean, I can speak for open captioning. An example is Book of Mormon. We had 38 people that came for the open caption performance. And you see that in all the theaters, that people are now buying subscriptions for the open caption performance as well as the signed performance or the audio described performance.
Very limited performances are therefore, that's the unfortunate thing.
Yes, yes. There's one performance per run. It's usually the last Saturday matinee or the last Sunday matinee.
Go ahead, Lew. Let's start with opera. I mean, opera's had that for quite a while. I can't believe that I went to the opera and then when there was no captioning.
Well, operas have surtitles, which is not verbatim. It's giving you the gist of what they're singing on stage.
See, I didn't know that. To me, it's why I didn't understand the language.
Exactly,
As far as I know, it's
right.
verbatim, so I'll accept it.
Right. It gives you the concept of what's happening on stage.
But those are done in advance.
Oh, yes.
Right. And in fact, let's talk about advance. Let's talk about your process when someone says they're bringing Annie in or they're bringing in some show.
Okay.
Walk us through your process from the very, very beginning when you get the call that says this is the show that we're going to do.
Okay, I usually get the script either from Broadway Across America or from each particular venue. It could be in Word, it could be in PDF. I take that script and put it into the captioning software. Once it's in there, I take out all stage directions, all lighting cues, anything that's visual, I remove. I keep all the sound effects in. And then I format it the way I think the actor is going to say the line or sing the lyric. I'm doing that right now for Cinderella. I've never seen Cinderella. So formatting that script, I'm guessing. After I do that, I print it, I take it to the theater for a preview, and I match it up. Oh, there's a pause there. There's overlapping lyrics here. There's a blackout here. So I put that all in the script.
Now, are you pardon me for interrupting,
Sure.
but are you the person who's actually running the service during the show, or do you
Yes.
have a group of operators, or is it just you?
Just me.
Wow, wow.
Tell us a little bit about you personally, your background, and how you came to start doing this line of work.
I'm a court reporter, and I wanted a way out of court reporting. And I started learning sign language, so I've been signing things.
Oh.
A friend of mine, also a court reporter in New York, was starting to do open captioning in New York. Contacted me, asked me if I would be interested. Yes. So it took a year of training, and I captioned in New York. I captioned at the Kennedy Center. I captioned in Philly, and then I said, why am I traveling? I have theater right here. It took me 4 years to get into the Broward Center.
Lew, what you brought equipment with you here today. Tell me what you've got. What are we going to see?
That's the captioning display, and words are displayed. It's called performance driven. So the words are displayed as the actor is saying or singing the lyric. It's not ahead, it's not behind. Otherwise it would be a distraction, and if you show a line of a punchline before they actually say it, it's not good. So it's in sync with the performance.
Now I'm assuming that you sit up in the booth and watch, or is it how does the display work in conjunction with the actors as the actors are saying the line? Certainly it has to be timed, or is it done on the fly?
It's done on the fly, and there's some element of timing it. I mean, if I hear a song that's very slow and there are a lot of pauses, I'll put that in the script. So when I do scroll it out, it'll reflect that. When I caption, I sit right at the edge of the stage.
Oh, I didn't realize you're on the stage.
Not on, just in front of it.
Okay.
A little bit to the side. When I'm previewing it, I'm in the booth, because I can have the headset and I can hear word for word.
Is that a long process?
Very.
Yeah, it's important to know that it's not like the opera where the captioning is up here, is that it's actually on a screen. And I know because I've attended these, and it's wonderful. And he's off on the side. Lew is there very unobtrusively. And all the people who bought special tickets for this are sitting right there. So the subscriptions is very important.
Yes, yes.
So they get that same seat. And if I see an empty seat and I happen to be at that performance, I'll race over because it is wonderful, especially lyrics, understanding the lyrics.
Especially if a show has dialects or accents or they're overlapping
Yes.
lyrics. An example is Phantom, which is coming in. There's 3 songs that have overlapping lyrics. The one that comes to mind right off the bat is Prima Donna.
And how do you
Yes,
handle
I was going to
that?
say, how do you address that?
It took 6 hours listening to that one song, because the concept is to display the lyrics that move the story along. When you have 6 people on stage, each singing their own lyric to move their story along, you have to disseminate which one do you display, otherwise it's too congested on the display.
Sure.
And then I realized that the audience is not understanding a single word, because you have 6 people singing different lyrics.
Sure.
So it took 6 hours to do that.
I hope you're
That one
appreciated.
song.
I hope that.
And what do you end up with in the end when you have to
A
differentiate?
few words from this person, a few words from that person, as long as the story moves forward. And I find during that particular song, it's not just people with hearing loss, everybody is staring at the display.
If you're anywhere in the vicinity, yes, that's great.
But you asked me the length of time. A show like My Fair Lady, which was the first show that we've done at Kravis, 56 hours I put into that show. It was never captioned before. Lots of overlapping lyrics, lots of changes from the original script. But it's a labor of love. And the people who come for this accessible performance are so appreciative and so grateful that the theaters are offering this service. That's why I do it.
When you caption a show, do you use that caption? Can it be used again at another production, or is it a one-time deal?
It's a
or-
one-time deal, like I was telling Bill earlier. Captioned Camelot at the Broward Center. 2 weeks later, that show went up to Kravis. Completely different cast,
Oh, my.
completely different lyrics. They moved songs from the first act to the second. They changed dialogue from the second act to the first. So every performance is different, which is live theater. Every performance is different.
Wow.
Well, a musical's not necessarily. That's why I say I can imagine with a musical, you're pretty safe. But with a straight play, actors sometimes tend to improvise when they go up.
Why are you looking at him?
And it's a playwright there suffering. No, I didn't write that. I should talk about
Actually,
that
we should talk
sometime.
about captioning and facing it towards the actors. That might help in some situations.
An example of that is I Love Lucy, which I just did at our center. And a lot of it is unscripted. It's the audience participation. They'll bring people up on stage and do a quiz, which is not scripted.
So what do you do?
Court reporting machine.
I was
Wow.
going to say.
That must be fun. Or
Oh
not.
boy, not. I previewed that show 4 times, and every time I previewed it, it was a different show.
Wow.
So I use the script that I had as a base, but I'm constantly going like that.
But you were also saying earlier when we were in the green room that sometimes they make changes in the script and they don't tell you about it. And so you've got a script, you've done all this work in advance, and you walk in and they're saying something up on that stage that they weren't saying you have in your
really
script.
quick. Hopefully it's a short line that I can physically type into the laptop. But if they go off script, they forget a line and they forget where they are, which happened in Wicked twice. You just have to pray.
That they find their way back.
So how many shows per week, or I mean, on the average, do you do, or per month, or?
It varies, usually 2 shows a month, sometimes 3. But that's the caption performance, but I preview a lot during the week. Arsht has a week's run, so I try to preview as often as I can during that week. Broward has 2 weeks run, so it gives me some flexibility.
Before he captions, actually.
Right.
Sure. But you go elsewhere too. You travel. You're in demand. That the expression
I love it.
is.
I love it. When we started at the Broward Center in 2004, people were uneducated about the service. So we got a focus group together of people who were deaf and hearing impaired. We brought them into the theater with the display. Where would you like it? How do you want it set up? How far to the right? How high? And we discovered that if the display is a level equal to where the actors are, where their faces are, people can read their lips and they can glance at the display. People are not reading the display, they're just glancing at it because there's only 3 or 4 words per line. So you just quickly glance at it. So this focus group set it all up. Then we invited them to Phantom of the Opera. And at the end of the show, this group of 8 people came over to me, tears, holding me, hugging me, saying, thank you. Now we can buy a subscription to the theater and we can go see performances. And that's why I do this.
There was a lady that I interviewed a couple of years ago when we were talking for a story who was in her 80s, and she had been going to the Broward Center for a decade and a half, and she had begun to lose her hearing. And I remember her saying, this is like a gift because I can go, I don't have to stop going. That theater is so important to me, and this makes it possible me to keep going.
One of the nicest things I've heard was Arlene Romoff, who was the pioneer to bring captioning to the theater. She started in New Jersey. And she said one of the greatest thrills that she had was standing in the lobby with a playbill in her hand during intermission and fits right in with everybody. She felt accepted. She wasn't separated out as a person with a disability. She fit right in, and that's just amazing.
Let's talk a little bit further about other services. The visually impaired, you ready to talk about that as well?
Four venues down here have audio description, where people with vision loss or who are blind come to the theater with a guest, and they hear with a headset what the costumes look like, what the sets look like, what the dancing looks like. They also have touch tours. Arsht is very big on touch tours. They have a group of people where they bring on stage, touch the sets, touch the costumes, meet the actors, meet the production crew, so that when they do sit there, they can enjoy the performance that much more because they touched it.
When you talk about the description, wearing the headsets and the play literally being described, is it happening live? Is there someone who's standing off to one side to describe?
There's somebody in the booth with a mic and a headset, and they're speaking in between lyrics, in between dialogue. They're speaking of what they're seeing.
Nice.
We also have Braille programs, people who are completely blind. We have large print programs.
Oh, that's nice.
It's amazing. The accessibility down here is just astonishing.
We have to keep saying that because we keep saying, please go to the theater, go to the theater. Now we can give them, more reason to go. It really, but I don't think it's publicized enough.
Well, and I have to say, I take
agree.
my hat off and give kudos to the Arsht and the Broward Center and the Kravis for embracing these programs and making the arts accessible to everyone.
I'm on the board of FLACA, Florida Access Coalition for the Arts. It's a breakout of the Kennedy Center's LEAD organization, Leadership in the Arts and Disabilities. And what we do is promote accessible performances throughout the state.
You do good.
And I just gave you the flyer, which lists all the shows this year that are accessible. And we depend on getting the word out, people like you who have a website, and Chris John who has a website, to let people know that these services do exist.
Do you have a website?
Personally, I don't.
And the website for
It should be on there. Flacca,
FLACA.
Flaccess.org, FLACCESS.org.
correct.
And they
It's
can
the-
find out the schedule for all of the captioning performances.
To
Exactly.
promote, provide, and facilitate equal access to every individual wanting to experience the arts. Oh, I love that.
I've seen people come to the Kravis Center in hospital beds with a nurse and the IV because they wanted to see the show, and the Kravis Center accommodated them.
Are there other venues that you may not be directly connected with that do similar things here in the 3 counties?
In the 3 counties, not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah,
How
I was
about
gonna-
the state? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The state of Florida.
Not that I know of. We used to caption on the West Coast. We used to caption at the Van Wezel, the Asalo, and there's another theater there. I can't think of it. The Purple Theater.
The theater, it was
Everything
Theater
is
Works, that's
purple in
Florida
that theater.
Studio?
I'm sorry?
Florida Studio?
No.
Okay.
But they didn't advertise, so people didn't know it existed.
Oh.
So they dropped the program. It's very important for the marketing people
Sure.
at every theater to let the people know that these services exist.
Well, here's a question. Is it expensive? Are these programs expensive? How does that work?
That's probably the biggest hurdle I have to deal with when I come to a new theater. Oh, we can't afford that. Well, yeah, you can. You open up the program in the back and you see hundreds of people who gave money to the theater, sponsorship, donation, scholarship, whatever it is. Can't the theater contact one of those people and say, hey, the $5,000 that you donated to the theater for this season, can that be used for accessibility? Are they going to say no?
Oh, of course not. But, you know,
So when people say we don't have the funds, yeah, you can get it. You can apply for a grant. Miami Theater Center, they've been doing autistic performances.
I wanted to ask you about that. Talk about that. That's a very interesting program.
They provide every kind of accessibility that there is, and they apply for grants, and they always get the grants. That's how they pay for
But
it.
talk about the program, what the substance of the program is.
Theater Development Fund started autistic shows in New York. They do a lot with The Lion King, where they close the theater down, open it up to anybody who has autism, and they do an autistic performance because you have to adjust the show as far as the lights and the sound and all that. Judy Litt at Miami Theater Center wanted to pursue that, and extremely successful. The place was filled with people, children who were autistic and their parents and their teachers, and it was a huge success.
beautiful, beautiful.
And
I read
it-
about that. That got notice.
Yes, it did.
I have to say, too, Jeremiah Musgrove, who's a wonderful actor in town, he's worked in that program. And
Amazing.
He's told me of great success that they've had with specific kids who are autistic and how they've made breakthroughs through the arts.
Right, because Miami Theater Center used to be the playground theater.
Exactly.
And they did, up until the last year or so, nothing but programs for children and students. But they were very multimedia, they were very visual, they were very oral, a lot of sound, a
Yes.
lot of visuals. And for autistic children, in some cases, that's too much stimulation.
Yes, sure.
They
Yes.
can't handle it all coming at them at one time. And so they've had to modify things. And there's almost no one else I know that's doing that.
No,
It's just
I don't know of
amazing
anybody that's doing
program.
it either. That's why, I mean, the theater is open to all. Anybody who wants to get a ticket has the right to go to the theater.
Oh, the hearing assists. I mean, now it's become a law. Am I right?
It always has been the law.
It always has been.
The ADA?
All theaters after a certain amount of seats, is it? I don't know what it says.
Well, the Art
Must
Center,
have-
I'm very proud of them. They just bought 140 headsets for audio description, state-of-the-art headsets, which is amazing. Broward Center offers audio description for every show that runs in there. And we get people. We get a lot of people. We would get more if it was advertised more.
Sure.
Is there a training program for what you do? And what
Out of New York.
Out of New York. And what's involved in that?
I trained 8 people down here. It's not for everybody because of the time involved. I mean, like I said, I put 56 hours in My Fair Lady. Who wants to do that? So out of the 8 people, 1 made it.
Wow.
So it's very hard to find the people because everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to do it for the money. No, you're not doing it for the money. I get to see every show that comes in. Now, I haven't seen a show I've captioned since I started. Because when I preview, I'm buried in a script.
course, you're working.
When I'm captioning, I'm staring at the laptop or the display. So I never see a show.
But better than court reporting.
Oh my God, yes.
More bloodshed, though.
Yes. Between Sweeney Todd or a hearing in the courthouse, I'd rather take Sweeney Todd.
Have you ever done any performing yourself?
Once, I did Hair in 1971 in New York. It was my one and only acting experience, and it wasn't for me.
But you obviously love theater.
I adore theater, and I love backstage, and I love the whole production. That's why I said before, I think the stage crew needs recognition, because the show wouldn't happen unless it was you had a stage crew. So I'm more backstage than on stage, or on the side doing this.
Well, the beauty is you're very much a part of the show, but at the same part, you're using your special skills.
Right. I love looking at the audience when I'm captioning, if I can glance at the audience, because everyone has a smile.
Yes.
Sure.
They're really glad to be there, which is another reason why I prefer captioning than court reporting, because you walk into the theater and everybody wants to be there. Everybody. You walk into the courthouse, nobody wants to be there. The whole atmosphere is
That's
different.
wonderful.
So I love what I do.
What are the hardest shows to do, either by name or just in general, and what are the easiest ones to do? You must have some great war stories.
39 Steps comes to mind first.
Oh, yes,
That
we
show
saw British,
goes
too.
so fast.
Yeah.
So fast. And at one point, I looked at the audience watching the display, and everybody was going like that, reading the display, because it was going by so quickly. I Love Lucy, which I just did, was a nightmare. You get a show with Billy Elliot with the very thick accents.
Well, that's it. I was going to say.
If
the
I didn't
accents.
have the script, I wouldn't know what they're saying.
When you do a show like Billy Elliot and you're doing the captioning for it, do you put the accents in? Do
No.
you do it phonetically? No, you
Because
just
people have to read it, and if there are accents, then...
got it.
Yeah.
And I just want to make it clear that open captioning does not take the place of signed performances. They're two different animals.
That was my next question. Talk about, are there separate signed performances or simultaneously?
In New
How's it
York,
work?
it's simultaneous, but down here, it's one performance is signed, one performance is captioned, and audio described.
And why is that?
Right.
People who are completely deaf and their only form of communication is sign language have the right to see a show in their own language. Same thing with the South Cultural Arts Center down in Miami. They do a lot of Spanish shows. They're focusing on their demographics. People want to see Spanish shows. People who are deaf want to see signed performances. Yes, a deaf person can go to a captioned performance, but the English syntax is so different than the ASL syntax. An example is, do you want to go to the movies with me tomorrow night? Captioning would show, do you want to go to the movies with me tomorrow night? In sign language, it would be tomorrow night, movies go. So when you have a deaf person convey that message in 3 signs, and now they're reading all these words, it's too much information. So people who strictly rely on sign language have the right to see a show that's signed.
Do you
interpreted.
sign? Do you sign? You do that as well?
I don't do Broadway, but I'll do concerts and I'll do church things and I'll do small stuff.
What about-
But I leave the theater to the certified interpreters.
Are the Latin shows signed? Are the Latin shows captioned down here?
MTC asked me last season if I would be interested in captioning a Spanish show this season. And I said, I can't. I don't know Spanish. But I can hopefully find somebody who's fluent in Spanish that I can train them and they can do it. It hasn't happened yet, but it can be done.
I think it should be done.
And it
Yeah, I was
can be
gonna say that-
signed in Spanish using Spanish Sign Language.
Yeah, I was going to ask if there was a difference. Yeah,
Here we use American Sign Language. There's Spanish Sign Language, there's French Sign Language, there's German
Whoa.
Sign Language. And people who that is their communication deserve to see a show in that language.
Was learning to sign difficult?
No, I didn't think so. It's very natural. If you ever played charades, that gives you a good basis. You just want to get that thought out there by the way you look and the way you stand and what hand movements you use. Different than captioning, which is verbatim.
Where do you see this profession or this practice going? Do you see it proliferating? Do you see it waning?
Now, I don't see it waning at all. In fact, there are more and more theaters. I just got a call a couple of months ago from the new theater in Orlando that are providing signed performances when they open this season, but they want to get into open captioning. Jacksonville wants to get into open captioning. Captioning is done all over the country. In every major venue across the country, most of them provide open captioning. If they're providing sign performances, then they should be providing open caption performances.
It'd be nice if the film theaters, the movie theaters, follow through for special performances.
They do, but very limited.
Down here.
Down here, there's a movie theater in Aventura that offers Rear Window, which is captioning. I don't know when they offer it. I don't know the times. I don't follow through with that because I'm more involved in the theater than I am movies, but it does exist.
You know, now that you're saying that, I think that if our audience would follow through and call the Aventura Theater and say, I just heard that you do have, I don't go to the movies anymore because they're not captioned, and just call and find out which.
Absolutely.
Marketing, again, we were talking about the importance of marketing.
It's crucial. If people don't know these accessible services exist, they're not going to go. They have no clue that it's happening. Every single time I caption at the Kravis Center, people come up to me at intermission or at the end of the show. I didn't know they offered this. When did this start?
Yeah.
Well, we want to make sure that to help do that, we want to make sure we repeat your website one more time. It's flaccess.org. That's FLACCESS.org. You'll be able to see the list of where and when there are performances, accessible performances. And again, the main thing is to get the word spread.
Absolutely.
And we
offer it, and they will come.
we should, from your lips to God's ears. We want to thank you very much, Lew, for coming in and talking
pleasure.
about this.
My pleasure.
And bringing your friend down there on the floor.
That's Vivian. I call that Vivian.
Well, I want to thank Lew and Vivian, and I want to thank our wonderful panel here, as usual, for our latest episode of Spotlight on the Arts. Once again, we want to encourage everyone to go to the theater throughout the 3 counties and even the others if need be. And if you want to know what's playing and where it's playing and what some people think of it, go to floridatheateronstage.com, where we have an entire list. But once again, thank you for tuning in to Spotlight on the Arts.